lender. I'm going to start recording to Tony. Tony is somebody that we use, top-notch service. He can coach you, he can guide you. When you give your clients to Tony, you know he's going to make you look good. If you don't have great systems and you're not great with follow-up, don't worry about it. Tony's got it covered. So he's going to talk today about what he's seeing, trends, how to win in the market, things he thinks that we should be doing to try to make sure that we are getting the best offer for our clients and trying to win these deals. Tony, I'll give it to you.
All right. Thank you. And thanks, Chris, for putting on this training. It's really very valuable for agents to learn as these markets are changing. We are seeing a changing market. So today I'm going to go through a little bit of that with you. We're going to talk about markets when they are transitioning. We'll talk about the seller's market because a lot of the areas we're working with buyers in is still going to be a seller's market where we really have to compete and win. And we're used to that. We've been very, very successful, especially this summer as things continue to be tight for our buyers. Certainly less buyer activity, but we really are starting to see some cracks in the foundation, if you will. And Chris brought some good points up that there are going to be some markets that are transitioning. So today I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to share my screen. Chris, can you give me screen sharing?
Absolutely. Done.
Thanks.
You got the power now.
All right. Well, there she blows. All right. You should be able to see my screen, and we're going to talk about winning in a transitional market. And transitional markets are going to be defined in a second, but it really does require us to be in a spring-ready position. So we need to be able to react to the market we're really providing we're working with our clients in. So winning in a transitional market, these are going to be effective strategies that we work on to move our clients forward to the front of the line when it does come time to win an offer. First of all, we need to identify the markets that our buyers are shopping for a home in. Sellers markets are traditionally defined 0 to 3 months of inventory. Transitional markets, those are where we're starting to see 3 to 5 months of inventory piling up. And so there are some single family housing markets that are still in very, very tight marketplace. There's going to be some condominium markets like Lowell. They're starting to move into the transitional market area, starting to see those houses, those units sitting online a little bit longer. And then we're really not seeing much of a buyer's market here in Massachusetts, even New England. If you're marking and you're watching all of the marketplaces out there, rest of the country. I mean, if you go to Florida, it is a heavy buyer's market right in Florida right now. So a lot of the country is in much of a buyer's market. We're just seeing something a little bit different now. Here's what we see. I just pulled these stats for August. We look at this exclusively. So a lot of people think that we watch interest rates and that's what makes us adapt our strategies here in the lending world. That is not what we watch. We watch inventory, or especially I do. Inventory dictates buyer and seller behavior. And for us to be competitive in the lending world and especially in the real estate world, we need to understand the markets that our buyers are shopping in right now. So as you can see, a lot of Middlesex County is still in a very much a seller's market. We're starting to see condominiums cracking and moving closer to a seller's market or transitional market. You can see Lowell's got 2.8 months of inventory of, as far as August is concerned, of condominiums. Worcester County still in that under 2 months of single family residence. Bolton, however, is up to 3 months. So you can see there's some markets that are transitioning. You just have to keep an eye on this, and you have to understand your buyers better and understand the market they're shopping in. So when we look at the numbers, we can see it's really starting to shift a little bit in some areas. Here's the catch. If your buyer's offer isn't accepted in this environment, there's a big risk, especially there's 3 of them that you have to watch out for. And we're going to define those today because these risks can affect our ability to be successful with our particular buyer and waste a lot of time. First of all, the 3 big risks, number 1 being time. Your time, especially in your buyer's time as well. You've already invested a lot of hours showing buyers homes, writing offers and counseling them, doing consultations for them. And if they continue losing, offers every time you bring them out to a property, you're just wasting your time. And time is extremely valuable. We don't want to lose our time or your time as buyers and listing agents. Secondly, buyers. The buyers can have a change of heart. We've seen this. I'm sure you've all seen this before, where the longer they're out there, the more they get discouraged. The more offers they put in, and the more times those offers miss, the more they get discouraged. So we do have to keep an eye on our buyers and their temperament and their discouragement, keep them motivated moving forward. And we have to win their offers when they do find the right home. We really have to put everything we can into winning the offer. Thirdly, and most often frustratingly, is buyers start blaming people. They blame the lender, they blame the realtor for not winning in the marketplace. So we have to do everything we can to identify the market, identify the buyer we're working with, and find ways for them to win. And so that's what we've designed as we've gone through this exercise over the years, as we found ways to help our buyers win. So the risk that the buyers lose patience, lose interest, lose trust, can be at the root of our losses when we're not prepared ahead of time. A lot of it comes down to what they value most when they're buying a home. So we have to understand the buyer that we're working with. Some buyers are going to have different values than other buyers, and if we understand them better, we can kind of walk them through an exercise to get them to win the offer when they do find a home. So first of all, price conscious buyers are really focused on getting the best price on the home that they're trying to buy, better terms. They're just overall looking for a better investment. And then we have the affordability buyers. These are buyers that really worry about what it's going to cost them every month. So they're focused on interest rates, closing costs, down payment amounts. These are things that affordability buyers are focused on. So we have to know the type of buyer that we're working with. And that type of buyer is going to help you frame the offer and also how you negotiate that offer on their behalf. So because if you don't zero on what they care most about, you'll risk your buyers feeling unheard. And that's certainly frustrating for them. You often see them disappearing when they don't feel heard or listened to. And so we do have to spend some time understanding what's important to our buyers so that they do go heard, and they do work with us and trust us to help them craft the right offer on the property that they're looking at. So our job is to identify that driver of our buyer early on, align it to the offers that we're working on, and then we can apply these strategies. How we apply them may look a little bit different, like Chris was saying, depending on the home you're seeing on the market that these buyers are interested in. And we'll talk about that right now. Homes that are sitting for a while in a transitional market, as you start seeing inventory sit, agents will have the control to manage the price of the home, like Chris talked about, lowering the price over time. They can also negotiate terms. It may not be up to maybe it's not the price that you adjust a lot. Maybe it's the terms that the buyer is willing to they need extra terms. They need a little bit longer to close or a little bit shorter to close. Maybe there's something that you can get from the seller in that market. They also can be negotiating interest rates at that time, and that means you could be negotiating seller credits to get your buyers better rates and improve affordability. Closing cost credits, down payment assistance, where sellers pay their closing costs and the buyers can focus their monies on their down payment. Overall, it can be a better investment when homes start sitting a long time. Homes that are seeing multiple offers. This is where we've been in a lot of the markets, and we still are in a lot of the markets here in Massachusetts. This is where you might be negotiating, agents have the ability to negotiate prices on the home, but more importantly, getting wins and getting bidding wars taken care of for our buyers. They're going to start seeing, houses that are getting hit with multiple offers, and your buyers are going to start being very frustrated at their ability to get their offer accepted if you don't play some key role in negotiating that for your buyers. So our goal is to get smoother transactions and, most importantly, get our buyers to win in that multiple offer marketplace. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. We've got some tactics that will help you deploy when it does come time. Negotiating skills do come into play. And, it's not about throwing an offer in and being number one because you're just throwing the biggest price in there. It's about understanding what's going to be important to the buyers, the sellers, even the listing agent. and then structuring the offer around that so that it meets those three constituents' goals. All right, we'll talk about in negotiating our in negotiating our offer and improving our negotiating skills. I heard a quote actually I wanted to tell you. Someone told me about a show called Yellowstone, and they said Kevin Costner on this show said fair is when one side gets everything they want and the other side doesn't complain. And this is where we can start focusing on helping our buyers get what they want with the seller and the listing agent not complaining. So think about what's important to home buyers. A lot of people will say getting the cheapest price on the home or something like that. Oftentimes, it's the monthly payment. That's what we find one of the most important things is. Also, finding the right home. This is an emotional decision for buyers. So buyers trying to be moving their family across town, buying the right home. A primary residence carries a lot of emotion to it, and so finding the right home is one of the number one things they look for. Then being able to afford the monthly payment. Price usually comes third after all of that for buyers because affording the home is more important than the price that they're paying on the home. And again, this is for markets, especially when we're in a tight market where the house prices are continuing to climb. Now, let's talk about the seller. What's important to sellers? Well, very often people will think price is important to sellers. And that is not the most important thing we find when we've been working with buyers and making offers and winning offers on homes. Certainty is the biggest thing sellers are looking for because they're also uploading their family or packing up their family and all their contents, and they're moving to another part of town or part of the country. They've got a lot riding on this transaction. So certainty comes very, very highly motivating to sellers. They want to know that the transaction's going to close, that they're not going to have problems, because maybe even they have another transaction on the other side that they have to deal with. So certainty is number one. Price is number two. They do want the best price they can get on the property as they can. And then terms number three. This will mean how fast they close, how slow they close, depending on what they need as a seller, what the contingencies might be as well. And then finally, that listing agent. There is another party that's involved in all of this, and the listing agent also has something in common with the seller, and that is certainty. They definitely want a transaction to close on time and on budget. And so a listing agent is going to be concerned, I don't know if any of you ever had to go back to a seller and say that, sorry, we haven't been able to close this transaction. We're going to lose the buyer. Their financing fell through, or they disappeared for one reason or the other. It's 15 days in and the inspection process failed. Definitely don't want to have to do that, right? So listing agents are looking for certainty on a transaction. And now, if we can agree to all of these, negotiating points and things that are important to the constituents, we also want to understand how we can apply all this and get everything we want for our buyers. Some of that comes down to negotiating skills and showing our value propositions. Now, we on the Cardinelli team, we've put together four important value propositions that we share with both our buyers and our agent partners. Number one is a rock solid pre-approval process. We take every client through the same pre-approval process, making sure that they are going to be approved and closed on time. We offer support in our Home Buyers Edge program, showing people how to write offers successfully on a home and get those offers accepted. Seamless contract to close process is important, as well as also marketing and business growth support for our agents. For an agent, you also have value propositions you're going to be sharing with your clients. This is going to be part of your negotiating process with both your buyers and when you're working with sellers. So knowledge, sourcing homes for buyers, maybe homes that are not on the market, negotiating, and closing. So these four pillars are all very important. And instead of going through this in great detail, I've put together some scripts that I will share with you afterwards that you can talk about your different value propositions. Because now more than ever, especially with the new NAR settlement, it's more important than ever to show our value to our clients. Part of that process is going to be the education we provide when we do these accelerated or these aggressive offers, perhaps on properties that are receiving multiple bids, or when we're looking for seller credits. So I'll share that with you afterwards. To
Quick question,
feel,
Tony.
yeah,
I don't want to interrupt you, Tony, but
yeah,
going through in terms of, the biggest thing for us is always that rock solid pre-approval. That was one of the
yep,
boxes, right?
right,
And so, one of the biggest things that, listing agents are looking for is saying, hey, how solid is this pre-approval? Because, it's
right.
always, you're always a little suspicious that this thing might be flimsy. What are some of the things that you're seeing that are working that agents are saying, and what are you doing to kind of help give that listing agent some comfort that this is really a solid deal? And how do you demonstrate that beyond just the pre-approval letter?
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly what we're going to talk about next, Chris. It's a perfect question.
I got good
So,
timing.
good timing. What happens actually is when we are trying to negotiate with a seller to get something that's important for our buyer, to get them to win. Sometimes it's just getting them to accept our offer, and to increase certainty for the seller and the listing agent. We've put together a framework. So the framework we created helps unlock that confidence that Chris is talking about, certainty and confidence. So we want the seller to feel confident that our buyers are going to close successfully on time, and also that our team can deliver this transaction on time and to the terms that were offered. So in a transitional market, or even in a market where the sellers have the upper hand, it's more important than ever to have a framework that you're going to take your buyers through. And it's a team effort. That's why I'm glad Kelly is here, because you'll see it's a very much a team effort in getting a seller to accept a buyer's offer, whether it's to improve the terms for our buyers or it's to improve the ability of our buyers to get their offer accepted. And we'll talk about that now in something we call the 7 elements of a winning offer. I'm going to send you a copy of this afterwards, so you don't have to take too much of copious notes. But there are 7 key elements that we figured out over time that if we deploy these elements every time we do an offer, we see more and more success every time. In fact, 4 times last week we had offers accepted. One of those times was it wasn't the highest offer in the transaction. The buyer, the couple that we were representing, made an offer that was lower, but they provided terms like Chris was talking about earlier, terms that the seller found more attractive than just a higher price. So certainty was one of those terms. I'll show you what that means. First of all, Chris, um, agents play the biggest role in making sure an offer hits the target. And that's where we talk about element number one is a data-backed offer price. That data is the price you're paying for the home. So that means you as an agent, you're identifying, is the property vacant? Can we go under? Do we have to go over? What's the market doing? Looking at comparables and articulating that to your buyers. That's a data-backed offer price. Also, if part of that data is the terms that you need to look for, like Chris said, when you're calling the listing agent trying to find out if the property's vacant or been on the market, what's important to the seller is closing quickly or closing slowly. Do they need a use and occupancy? These are all things that a data-backed offer price that you'll structure as a buyer's agent is going to help that buyer with. Next, number two is a 5 to 7 day purchase and sale. So I think Kelly's going to share with us a little bit more about the law that's coming into place with respect to the home inspections. I can't speak to that specifically. I'm not an expert in that area, but I do understand that we're going to be limited in our ability to comment on home inspections. At least that's what I heard. So if you can't tell the listing agent and the seller that you're going to perform a home inspection quickly, at least tell them you're going to get to contract quickly, especially here in Massachusetts when it's a two-step state. So if we can provide or if you can provide a 5 to 7 day turnaround on the purchase and sale signing, you're obviously projecting to the seller that you're going to be getting any inspections that do happen out of the way quickly, increasing certainty to the seller that they're not going to be off the market long before they find out if there's a problem with their property. Again, they want to know quickly if they got to get back on the market. They want to, and so does the listing agent because they need to get this house sold. Next, number three, a 7 to 10 day loan approval. This is where the lender you work with is going to be really important. This lender needs to be well organized, either with an upfront pre-approved loan already, or they need to be organized enough to understand they've done a complete and solid pre-approval. Like I pre-approved a guy today. I didn't need to underwrite his loan ahead of time. It was very straightforward. I know without a shadow of a doubt we can close his mortgage. But being able to turn around a loan approval in 7 to 10 days, meaning commitment from the day the offer is written, 7 to 10 days later, having a commitment in hand takes a well-oiled machine. And so that's also very important. And if you do that, you're increasing certainty to the seller that right after the P&S is signed, you're going to be having a loan commitment done. That seller does not have to wait to find out the traditional 20 to 30 days later that the loan is going to be approved or not, and that they have to go back on the market. Increasing certainty, decreasing uncertainty for both the seller and the listing agent. It means being prepared ahead of time. Verifying the appraisal before the P&S. You could literally write a P&S indicating that there's no more appraisal contingency in the contract because we do an appraisal within 3 days of the offer being accepted. This is a competitive advantage that you can have. We've got 11 appraisers on staff already agreed to do an appraisal within 72 hours of receiving the order. And that means they're immediately, once the offer is accepted, they're calling the listing agent, they're getting in the property, and they turn around that report. And we've had it happen every single time that we order a 3-day appraisal. So that allows you to verify the value and any price problems or value problems before you even get to the purchase contract. That's a competitive advantage for your buyer instead of waiting 2 to 3 weeks, for typical appraisals to be done. Getting the closing done in 14 to 21 days, also a competitive advantage. Who doesn't want to get paid quickly, like the listing agent? They'd love to be paid very quickly. So if we can shrink the time frame in which you need to close on the property to 14 days for conventional conforming loans or FHA loans, or 21 days for VA loans, condominiums, and jumbo loans, you're only improving your chances that you're going to be competing aggressively with cash offers on the property. This changes how the seller looks at your offer in comparison to other financed offers, especially. And that was one of the other examples we had last week that we won because we could close quick. The seller liked our offer better. Next, the last two, Chris, is what you were asking me. Lender to listing agent communication is extremely important from the get-go. So when you make an offer on a property, if you CC the lender, namely me in this case, right at the same time as you're making the offer, I don't care if it's weekends, nights, Sunday morning, all I have to do is pick up the phone and call that listing agent and introduce myself and tell them that we've already pre-approved the buyer. We have all their documents in hand. They're ready to go to underwriting, or we've already underwritten their file. And here's how we're going to make these deadlines that are in front of you and why it's going to work. They just want certainty. So, Chris, what we do is call behind the offer immediately when it hits that listing agent's desk and introduce ourselves and tell them how smooth the transaction is going to happen and why it's going to work. That goes a long way because I can imagine a lot of you wouldn't be raising your hands if I asked you how many times a lender calls behind an offer and you don't have to chase them around for information. Okay, it's a real strong way to connect your lender to that listing agent immediately. Works very, very well. I get calls sometimes actually from listing agents that say the seller accepted the offer because I told them you're the only lender that called us, and certainty was extremely important to them. Okay, it just works. Finally, because listing agents won't remember everything I told them on the phone, we follow up with an email with 7 additional reasons why the seller should accept the offer. And we go into the reasons that we're all a local processing and underwriting team here at Cross Country. Everything's done locally. We've been in business 23 years, and we have a 100% success rate in getting these things done quickly like this. So we follow up with an email to that listing agent that they can share off to the seller. All right, so they have something in writing from us. These are the 7 elements of winning offers that if you deploy all these in order like this, you'll have a lot greater success at getting offers accepted. Now, and this is in a multiple offer situation, but think about it in a transitioning market like we're in some cases. You may be instead offering these items, but instead of looking for just worrying about getting the offer accepted, maybe you're doing these so that you can negotiate seller credits. So if there's one offer that's a 30 to 45 day closing, and there's another offer that's a 14-day closing with a use and occupancy for free for 2 weeks, you might be able to negotiate a seller credit in these cases. Instead of just dropping the price, maybe a seller credit is going to be more important to your buyers because they need to buy down their interest rate to make the property affordable, or they need to, get their closing costs paid for so they can focus their monies on their down payment and get a better program or price. Okay. So these negotiating elements can be applied for different reasons in different marketplaces. All of them work really well for all of those cases. All right. Any questions about that, Chris?
I think it's great. And I think a key component here is really like keeping this in front of you, right? Because a lot of times I think we are so programmed when we do offers. So we're like,
Right.
okay, we got to do our offer, maybe 10-day inspection or 7-day inspection, mortgage
Right.
commitment a week before. Maybe we're doing appraisal, maybe we're doing a subject to appraisal. I think having this and really starting to lock in on these timelines of
Right.
like, hey, the appraisal you don't have to do because you're gonna know it before PNS, right? Especially if we
Yeah.
have some language in there to correct to protect us, up
Right.
till PNS.
Yep.
And then we're tightening up, like what we're normally teaching Tony is, hey, like purchase and sale 10 days. We're tightening that up, right? So we're just tightening everything way up because it's
Right.
allowing us to close faster
Yep.
and get all of our due diligence in tighter. So I think you're dropping some awesome notes for us that we can make sure that we're putting in
Right.
so we can win these things, and it's tools because normally most people can't get this done this quick. So I think it's really
That's
great.
right. That's right. So you
It's really great.
after this meeting, I will ask you to fill out a survey, everybody. There'll be a QR code to scan, and if you do that for me and give me your email address, I will provide you with a copy of a script for you of an agent explaining the 7 elements to their buyer. Also with the a playbook. So the playbook outlines all of these elements, how you can deploy them, especially in a tight market, because we've been in such a tight market that it was really geared towards winning in multiple bidding situations. But you can see how you can use it in a transitional market as well. Winning the offer is not just the only game. Once the offer is accepted, there are financing terms like buy downs and float downs and other seller programs that really help our buyers win in the end. We want these buyers to be your clients for life as well as ours. And so building in a process that not only follows these buyers through to closing successfully, but afterwards is important. So this is where, Chris, yeah, you were mentioning having a tight process in place. This is where our pre-approval process comes in, and that's why it's important. Whatever lender you work with, whether it's me or somebody else, you need to make sure that the pre-approval process doesn't come off to being just a formality. We look at our pre-approval process as actually a competitive advantage. And it's a competitive advantage because not only is it thorough, but it also provides all of the other elements that our buyers can take advantage of. We need to understand our buyers' capabilities, right? We need to know what they can do. Do the buyers have the funds for larger earnest money deposits? Can they close quickly? Can they even fathom doing something like that? All of this has to be discussed ahead of time so your buyers are agile. The worst thing in the world is when you find the perfect home for them and they can't make a decision because they're so nervous about all of the unknowns that lender didn't tell them about. So this is where our pre-approval process comes in. We call it the most trusted, simple, and most realtor-referred pre-approval process. We take an application by phone every single day of the week, even on Saturdays and Sundays. I'll take them by phone. We gather all their documents needed for their pre-approval, and we underwrite and pre-approve that loan typically within 6 to 7 hours from getting the documents. Our team is there to do it. All home buyers, regardless of their qualifications, will get a consultation with me. In the consultation, I tell them all their facts and figures, the cash to close requirements. We talk about earnest money deposits, so you're not wondering how much money they have. And we're going to talk about these timelines and the 7 elements of a winning offer. Really just teeing up your conversation with them so that when you're having a conversation with them and you start talking about how competitive you're going to help them be, they've already had some foundation to understanding how it all works together and really why it's a team. Because you'll probably hear from Kelly, there's some things the attorneys have to be involved with that have to really move along this process quickly. Like that PNS, you need a partner that's going to work with you closely. MLCs, they could take up to 10 days to get. So if we're closing in 14 days, that attorney, that legal partner needs to be able to get the title started right away, and they need to be able to get that MLC done. And sometimes that does take up to 10 days with some towns. So the pre-approval process is important. It's not just a formality. It's where everything begins for your buyers to get educated on how to win. Above and beyond that, Chris, we were talking about doing things that can help your buyer see the light through affordability, like interest rate buy downs. If you're in a transitional market, we want to talk about interest rate buy downs. We also provide float downs when buyers are locking in interest rates today and next week or the week after they've fallen through the floor and they're much lower, we'll float down their interest rate. And then we also remind people that they're buying homes today in a higher interest rate environment. As rates fall, we will continue to reach out to them and provide them no cost refinances in the future. Okay. So as far as the content I had to share with you today, most importantly was negotiating as well as showing your value and covering the 7 elements of a winning offer. The best way to refer someone like me as a lender is to do a group text. You can scan that QR code. You can group text me with that phone number that's there in blue. Clients can call me 7 days a week. I know it says 5 there. It's 7 days a week. They can call me on weekends. I pick up that phone number every single day of the week. We can also work with clients if they email us so that we can communicate with them directly that way. Really, the best way and the fastest way and the way Chris uses all the time is just a simple text, a group text with me. All right. I am having a seminar this week, and every month we'll have a monthly with Tony seminar. You can scan that QR code to sign up this week. We'll be talking a little bit about the different markets that we're dealing in with right now and some competitive things we're seeing done, whether you're trying to get a seller to be non-contingent and that sort of thing. We'll be talking about that at these monthly with Tony webinars. And so you can scan that QR code. And finally, thank you for joining me today, and let me come in here and share this with you. We're having amazing success with this. If you scan that code and fill out that brief survey, just telling me what you liked about this so we can help others as well, and what your business needs. And we'll cover more helpful tips in the future. We'll also provide you with all of the content. We're giving you a playbook, all of the scripts that come along with getting all of this done quickly. Okay?
Tony, we
Any
love
other
it.
questions?
Does
I have
anybody
a
have
quick
any questions for
question.
Tony?
Yeah.
I have a quick question. It might be related or non-related. I just want to hear your opinion. So I'm supposed to close on Friday. Turns out that due to sellers' mistake, not able to close. We're getting kind of like the cold shoulder right now. We're not getting many answers, and I just want to know what kind of leverage do we have from the buyer side to either pressure him or move forward, or kind of like trying to do a power play here. What do you suggest?
It sounds like a legal question, Chris. Did I hear it right?
Yeah, I think the question is the
Yeah,
first
it could be legal.
question
It could
is
be legal.
what's the delay? What's the cause of the delay is the first question.
A problem with title.
So
And that's
usually
on
if
their
there's a
side.
problem with title, they're going to have 30 days to cure the title. But some of
Okay.
the pressure could be that, if we don't get this done in 30 days, we're walking from the transaction, right?
All right.
So they know, hey, if you don't get this thing solved, you're going to lose your buyer. So the other thing would be the attorney that's handling it, and Kelly could talk about it. Are they really on the issue to try to address this title, to try to cure it? A lot of times, like Kelly will tell you, they'll get somebody that handles title issues specifically so that they can try to handle that issue a little bit more expeditiously. Not all closing attorneys like to handle the title issue. So I would say that the one pressure is, hey, if the 30 days is up, we're walking and we want our money back. The second is trying to push to make sure that you've got somebody who's really tried to address that title issue and getting the right legal team on it. I don't know what you think about that, Kelly.
I have a couple thoughts on that. It's a great question. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Berry. I'm a residential real estate attorney at Dalton and Feingold. My thoughts on this are that, first of all, you can definitely say 30 days to cure the title. Using a great attorney both on the seller side and buyer side is extremely important, because in this scenario where you are on the buyer side and the seller side is having a difficult time resolving a title defect, if you are working in a collaborative transaction where you're working with the buyer side as well, buyer side title team can get involved too. We're all working towards the same end here, and we want to resolve these title issues. So oftentimes we'll have my title team, if I rep a buyer and seller's having a tough time, well, we will definitely get my title team in on it to resolve the problem. The third thought I had on this issue is that you can certainly raise issues, and Tony can speak to this. If there's going to be rate lock extension fees, you just say that the seller will be responsible for these extension fees and things like that, to put more of the burden on the sellers and almost put some of the cost of it on the seller.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Yep,
Appreciate it.
that's good. And how's that deal going right now, Josue? What's the last communication on it?
So the last communication I had was the seller was getting in contact with the person he had co-signed for him. You know, I don't believe much what the seller agent is saying, because I know it's just the lines. He's just giving me lines, you know. Regardless, my clients need to move out. They had to be moved out by Saturday. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna do a use and occupancy at least for like 2 months for them. With, you know, no renters.
Move them in and hope that it gets cured.
Yes. I got my fingers crossed, brother.
No, that's welcome to real estate. Welcome to residential real estate.
Just one
Problems
thing,
are
and
ever-present.
I'm sure this is totally obvious, but if seller's attorney hasn't found out if the seller has title insurance, that would be one of the first questions you ask for sure, because a title company, that if they're properly insured, they can get on it as well. That's certainly one of the first questions that should be asked.
Yeah, that's owners tend to Josue, not
Awesome.
lenders.
I'll ask him that later. Thank you so much. Yes.
All right, I want to bring Kelly on too, because Kelly, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we've been having like an over 90% hit rate on when I'm working with buyers, getting them through on the strategies that Tony is talking about and the legal maneuvering that we've been doing to try to keep things a little simple, but protecting things. And we got a lot of changes with inspection law. And Kelly told you that she's at Dalton Feingold, but she is really a superstar. People love Kelly. She's got a great personality. She's incredibly warm, and she's very good at diffusing situations, and she's very thorough. So I wanted to have her on today too, to help you guys to try to win in this market so we can all get our numbers up as we're giving you leads and people that are getting leads, that we are trying to convert them and win in these buyer situations as much as possible. So you can take it from here, Kelly.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Chris. That was really kind of you to say those nice words. I am absolutely honored to be on this call with Tony, because he is absolutely one of my favorite lenders to work with. If it were up to me, it would be, 100% Tony Cardinelli. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but we get the special pleasure of having Tuesdays with Tony, which whenever I have a deal with him, I look forward to it. He is extremely thorough, very organized, works with an amazing team. He hits his deadlines, all the things that from my end of the deal we look for. So Tony gets my vote 100%. I'm just going to give a quick little shout out for Dolan Feingold as well. Tony did mention how important it is to, when working on an offer, to hit your deadlines. Tightening up, and Chris mentioned tightening up your deadlines, because that could make your offer more appealing. Dolan Feingold can get, and myself as a residential real estate attorney, I project 3 to 5 days to PNS signing, just for my personal workload, my personal transactions. I can tell you that Dalton Feingold shoots for 2 weeks for title exams, but we do have an in-house title department. So if we get a closing that's in 2 weeks and we need to rush, we can have a title within 7 days. And MLCs, we order immediately. Again, that could hold things up. Choosing a great lender like Tony, we really can push those appraisals through. He definitely talked about that. Appraisals are something that's been holding up loans lately. So that is really important to take that timeline into account as well. I just quickly jotted down some notes. So Chris mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, when you're drafting a competitive offer, certainly write in your additional provisions subject to a mutually agreeable PNS. There are so many things that could be negotiated at the PNS stage that just don't get we don't aim to, and we negotiate well, and we get to agreeable terms 99.9% of the time. But if there's something that we're stuck on, you want to be able to protect your buyer to get out and have their deposits protected. So definitely that's a non-negotiable. You don't want to flood your additional provisions because that can become very overwhelming, but at the same time, you want to hit the important notes. So I just want to say, make sure you have an attorney. I certainly recommend myself to call your attorney at the offer writing stage, because there are things that might make the offer more compelling, but you don't know how to write it. You don't know how to draft it. You want to make sure that the attorney will be able to put it into the purchase and sale agreement effectively. Things like I'm seeing in my own files right now, I'm seeing a few, a little bit more contingencies. For example, home sale contingencies, I am seeing appraisal gaps. I have been seeing them. And so when a client can call me to ask how to draft that in the offer, it helps on the drafting of the PNS side. So call your attorney, call me anytime, 7 days a week, 24/7. I'm always available. I love to help out agents, even if, say, the buyer already has an attorney, but maybe you guys don't mesh as great. I'm happy to answer questions, just because I want to make sure that agents are writing solid offers and getting their offers accepted. But I have to say, on the legal side of it, it has to be legally draftable, and we try really hard to prevent anything getting too messy at drafting of the PNS stage. So if it can be written neatly in the offer, it helps everybody. So just a couple notes. I want to say on the legal side, having a tight mortgage commitment deadline is great to make your offer competitive. However, from my perspective, if you don't use a really buttoned up lender, or you have some sort of product that might be a little more complex, if you have to extend your mortgage commitment deadline and you have to ask seller to continue to extend the mortgage commitment deadline, it sometimes instills some sort of insecurity on the seller side. So that's a fine line. It's a double-edged sword. Really communicate with the lender for the buyer to make sure that you're on target to issue that mortgage commitment. Just because I have seen sometimes where I have to go back 3 or 4 times to request an extension because lender just couldn't get it together for whatever reason. Obviously not Tony. And the seller started to get anxious about what was going on. So I just have open lines of communication with the lender, with the attorney, with the agent, with the buyer, so everyone understands the implications of what deadline you do choose. Let's see, what else did I mention? Inspections. Okay, so in June, there's a new law that was enacted. It goes into effect October 15th about inspections. I have to say, in my reading of the law, it seems to be buyer protection. Obviously, we all understand that. Basically, a seller cannot make a buyer's offer more compelling if they waive their inspection, basically. However, buyers can still waive inspections. It can happen, and so I'm not sure how this will actually play out, but it is definitely a law that's supposed to protect buyers, to make their offers as competitive as any other offer out there, and making sure that buyers are protected and able to get their inspections. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, just because it is ambiguous, at least in my reading of it. So we'll see. That's October 15th. Let me see my other notes. I think I have seen a lot of home sale contingencies lately. Just on the offer side, if your buyer has a home sale contingency, call your attorney, call me, ask for a timeline that makes sense, because the home sale contingencies are a domino effect. If one falls through, then another falls through, and then everyone's upset and it's scrambling to put the pieces of the puzzle back together. So if you do need to have a home sale contingency, make sure you contact an attorney to make sure it's really a clean home sale contingency, that everyone's on the same page. I think that those are the quick notes that I wrote down, just feeding off of what Tony said and quickly preparing something. But I am open to answer any questions that you have at this time, or to talk more about anything I touched on.
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So if they can't waive inspections, how would they get, so like, how would they get around it, in it?
It is my understanding that it will be a side agreement. It's my understanding that you can't write it in the offer, but you can have a side agreement.
They can't force somebody to have the inspection, but they
Right.
can't waive it in the offer, Valenki. So what you would put is, hey, I have whatever period. In the Tony world, you got a 3-day inspection because you're trying to hit his deadline, or a 4-day or 5-day.
Yeah.
If the buyer decides that they don't want to do the inspection, then that's on them. But they didn't waive it. They were given the opportunity, and the seller couldn't consider it. Now, this is a mass provision right now. It's not New Hampshire at this time, but it's the type of thing where, I think what you'll find is this is going to be something that benefits like that first time home buyer, but still in those situations where you have flippers, people that are coming in and buying things that need a lot of repair. A lot of times they're professional. They will have it in the offer, but they're not actually going to perform the home inspection.
Got it. Okay. All right.
And there are a couple exceptions at the moment as drafted. The exceptions are for new construction. New construction, you assume that there is going to be like a punch list. So inspections are not assumed to be a part of that. And then the second thing is for like Title V, family transactions where you're selling to a family member or a partner. You don't have to have an inspection and you can waive it legally.
I think the big thing with that too, Kelly and Valenki, as it relates to mass, right? Everybody has to have it now. So it's one of those terms that no longer is the winnable term. And so that's why I think simplification in the offers, you want to protect the buyer, mutually agreeable, you're still going to have a mortgage commitment, but everybody's going to have the inspection. So I think a lot of times I'll get an offer and I'll see this, paragraph. And we used to do that. It was like all the protections. And then I'd be, I get that as a listing agent. I'm like, oh man, forget this. I mean, this person's going to be a total pain in the ass. They're hitting us with everything. And, they lose the offers up front because we see this paragraph. And a lot of times it's like, they got to continue to pay the taxes. They got to continue to pay the insurance. All that stuff is going to show up in the P&S anyways. So I think like simplification of the process, like to walk this through kind of holistically, you have your offer and you're doing a very clean offer and you call Kelly and just say, hey, getting the offer together. Is there anything else or wordsmithing if there's something particularly unusual? You're going to have an inspection. You're going to have a mortgage contingency most of the time. And you're going to add that you need to have a mutually agreeable P&S. That's probably the only thing in the provisions, okay? Unless we need to build in some language about the fridge or the washer dryer or something like that. So you're drafting the offer and you're calling Kelly. That's step one. And saying, how's this language looking? At the same time, you're calling Tony right after. You're saying, Tony, look, I got an offer going in on this house. I'm going to send you a copy of this. And then what do you think of the dates on your end? And Tony might say, hey, we could tighten this up a little bit. I can get you in this faster. I can close in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But you want to make sure everybody's lined up on the team before you unload on the offer, okay? And then when you submit the offer physically, what this training is telling you to win, Tony is giving us some really big things here that can't be understated. Like the appraisal no longer has to be on the table because we're going to be protected and we're going to know by P&S. So we do not have to put that in. And a lot of times your first time home buyers are like, what about the appraisal? You're afraid of it. And so you're putting that in and then everybody's like, oh, even though that's going to be an issue on the mortgage commitment anyways, everybody gets nervous when they see that appraisal. So you get that out. So now you're in this situation and you need to learn to talk like Tony. Like, listen, this person's fully pre-approved. Tony's going to call you. We could close this in 2 to 3 weeks if you want to. We'll have, if they ask appraisal, the appraisal is going to be done within a week. Yeah. And so you're really showing them and you're giving them what Tony talked about. You're giving them certainty, a much better certainty that there's a likelihood that the deal will close. So the way that it works holistically is you draft the offer. We put on all the normal, the agency disclosure, the lead paint documents, all that we need. But what you're really trying to do is sell the offer. This mortgage offer is almost as if it's as good as cash, right? We're going to know everything so soon. You're going to have so many decisions before P&S that when we hit P&S, we're going to be rock solid, right? And that's the same in a cash offer. It's always loosey-goosey till we get to P&S and there's real money down. And so I think holistically, you want to start, and I think having that winning board that Tony has with you, so that you can use that in your conversation of, hey, we can get an appraisal out this quick. We can get P&S done this fast. We can move so much faster. And then when you have had the conversation with Tony, once you get the offer in, you say to Tony, hey, give a call. Okay. And because also Tony's local, he's reputable in Northern Mass, Southern New Hampshire, people know him. They know he's rock solid. They know he doesn't give BS pre-approvals, but he can walk them through. And Tony is going to walk them through in a lot of lenders are like, oh yeah, they're pre-approved. And then you're like, oh, okay, they are. Yeah. Okay, great. And it's like, all right, I mean, well, what did you do? Did you pull the credit? I mean, how far did you get? Tony will really give them that overview of, this is what we've done. This is how solid this person is. And that's how we're winning all of these. That's how we're winning all of these deals, because we're going in very well prepared and we're letting the seller know up front. But if you screw this up in the beginning and you got an offer that's kind of clunky and you don't have you're rushing to get the pre-approval and you're not really sure if the pre-approval is even any good, then you get in there and you're like, oh yeah, I know I put 10% down, but geez, can I amend that? The client's doing 5%. It erodes the confidence with the listing agent. So getting this process really tight up front is the way that Tony has laid it out and Kelly has laid it out is really the way to do it. Well, I don't want to keep anybody. Does anybody else have any questions? We're at the hour mark here. Kelly, I want to thank you. I want to thank Tony for being on today. This is going to be recorded, so you'll see it on social. We'll push it out to the group. We'll make sure that everybody has access to it. I think it's, especially in this market where things are a little bit more challenging in a lot of different ways, I think it's important that offer strategies are starting to come down and we're figuring out how to position ourselves the right way.
Sounds great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great
Thank you,
day.
everyone.
We'll talk soon.